I was standing outside the sleek glass conference room at Meridian Global's downtown Denver headquarters, seconds away from the biggest meeting of my career, the meeting that would finally confirm the promotion I'd worked 8 years to earn. My heart pounded against my ribs as I smoothed down my charcoal gray blazer, trying to appear more composed than I felt. My hands were trembling, but not from nerves. My phone had just buzzed with a message that would change everything. Henry, my boss, someone I'd admired and trusted for years, had messaged me 3 words: "Call me. Urgent." The corporate hallway suddenly felt too narrow, the air too thin. I ducked into a side corridor where potted plants created the illusion of privacy among the stark white walls and brushed steel accents. "Henry, what's, going on?" I asked the moment he picked up, keeping my voice low. His voice was tense, almost a whisper. "Monica, before you walk into that room, you need to know something. The promotion decision isn't what you think. And Adam, he's not who you think either." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Adam Green, my colleague, my supposed friend, the person who'd shared late nights and project deadlines with me for years. "What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, though something cold was already spreading through my chest. "I found something yesterday during the integrity review. Emails, Monica, dozens of them." Henry's voice cracked slightly. "Adam's been sending your work to his personal email. Reports, presentations, strategy notes, everything with your name on it. And he's been telling Helena that he's mentoring you." Helena Price, the director, the woman waiting in that conference room right now to announce who would become the next senior strategy manager. "He's been taking credit for my work?" The words came out hollow, barely a question. "It's worse. He's made it look like you needed his guidance, like your success was his doing." Henry paused. "I'm so sorry. Monica, I should have seen it sooner." I leaned against the wall, my reflection fractured across the metal trim of a nearby office door. 8 years of late nights. 8 years of missing my daughter's bedtime stories. 8 years of delivering results while others delivered promises. "What happens now?" I asked. "Helena's waiting. Adam's already in there looking like he's won something." Henry hesitated. "I have all the evidence printed out. I was going to bring it up myself, but this is your career, Monica. Your work. Your truth." I straightened my spine, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, though that would come later. Something calmer, colder, more resolved. "Send me everything," I said. "I'll handle it myself." 5 minutes later, I stood before the conference room. Doors, a manila folder in my hand containing every betrayal, meticulously documented. Through the glass, I could see Adam sitting beside Helena, smiling, comfortable, a man who believed he'd already won. I thought of my daughter Riley asking just that morning, "Did you get the big job yet, Mommy?" "Not yet," I'd told her, kissing her forehead. "But today's the day we find out." I pulled open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The conversation stopped abruptly. 3 faces turned toward me. Helena Price with her perfect silver bob and assessing gaze. Henry, his concern barely masked. And Adam, with that smile that now looked nothing like friendship. "Monica," Helena nodded. "We were just discussing the upcoming leadership shift. I understand Adam has played a big role in preparing you for this next level." Adam's smile widened. "It's been an honor watching Monica grow." The manila folder felt heavy in my hands. For a brief moment, I thought about simply turning around and walking away, starting over somewhere else, somewhere without shadows and whispers and betrayal. But then I thought of Riley, of what I would tell her tonight. I placed the folder on the polished table and met Helena's eyes directly. "Before we continue," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "there's something you need to see." The room went silent as I opened the folder, and I felt the weight of 8 years, and the next 8, hanging in the balance. 6 months earlier, I'd been at my desk with a coffee in one hand and my hopes in the other. The morning light streamed through the wide windows of Meridian Global's open floor plan, catching on the chrome and glass that dominated our modern workspace. I'd been with the company for 8 years, a strategy analyst who'd started in the back row and slowly, painfully climbed my way to the front. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't the loudest voice in meetings, but I delivered results. Every single time. That particular morning, Henry had called me into his office, a glass cube barely more private than the open floor, but at least the walls muffled sound. "Close the door, Monica," he'd said, looking up from his monitor. I did, settling into the chair across from him, trying to read his expression. Henry Marks had been my direct supervisor for 3 years. He was fair, direct, and one of the few people in management who seemed to notice the difference between those who worked and those who talked about working. "Jankowski is retiring," Henry said without preamble. My coffee nearly slipped from my grip. Lawrence Jankowski was the senior strategy manager, the position directly beneath the executive team, a seat at the decision table. "When?" I asked, too stunned for anything more articulate. "End of the quarter." Henry leaned forward. "Monica, this next quarter is going to determine everything. If you keep leading the way you are, I'll go to bat for you. You've earned it." I remember going home that night, not even hungry, just floating. My 10-year-old daughter Riley hugged me when I walked in, her dark hair wild from playing, her eyes, so like mine, searching my face. "Did you get the big job, Mommy?" she asked. Riley had heard me talking about the possibility of a promotion for months. "Not yet," I smiled, setting down my laptop bag to lift her into a hug. "But I'm close." What I didn't tell Riley was how much that promotion would mean for us. Not just the money, though that mattered. Single motherhood in Denver wasn't cheap, but the stability, the recognition, the vindication after years of watching others rise. Faster because they networked better or looked the part or simply took credit louder. The next morning, Adam Green was waiting at my desk with 2 coffees. "Heard the news about Jankowski," he said, handing me a cup. "Exciting times." Adam and I had been hired the same year, started in the same department. He was tall, charming in that effortless way that opened doors without knocking, with a smile that disarmed even the most skeptical executives. We'd been friends, or so I thought, someone to lean on during late nights and stressful quarters. "Thanks," I said, accepting the coffee with a genuine smile. "It's a big opportunity. For both of us." He nodded, his eyes calculating something I couldn't quite read. "May the best analyst win, right?" I laughed, thinking he was joking. Adam's specialty was client relations, not strategy development. He was brilliant at making people feel heard, at smoothing ruffled feathers, at presenting ideas in ways that made executives feel they'd thought of them first. But the senior strategy manager role required deep analytical skills, forecasting expertise, and a meticulous approach to market positioning, all things I'd built my reputation on. But looking back, I should have seen it then. That flicker in his eyes, that subtle shift. The coffee wasn't a gesture of friendship. It was the opening move in a game I didn't know we were playing. Over the next few weeks, Adam started hanging around more. He'd stop by my desk to offer help on projects, too much help. He started fixing my spreadsheets without asking, offering to pitch in on, presentations I had already finished. "I added some visuals to your market forecast," he'd say, dropping by late when most of the floor had emptied. "The executive team responds better to graphics than raw numbers." I tried to see it as generosity, teamwork, but something in his eyes made me wonder, was he trying to help or take credit? By the second month, I noticed something else. Adam was suddenly in meetings I hadn't been invited to. His name was appearing on project lists that should have been mine. One afternoon, I overheard him in the break room, talking to someone from Helena's team. "The Eastern market expansion is coming along well," he was saying. "I've been guiding the analytical framework, making sure we're asking the right questions." The Eastern market expansion was my project, my framework, my questions. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m., double-checking every number, refining every slide, making sure my name was clearly on every document. I sent the completed report to Henry with a note. "Final version attached. Please let me know if you need any clarification on the methodology or findings." The next morning, Adam stopped by my desk again. "Hey, I saw you. Sent the Eastern report to Henry," he said casually. "I've got some thoughts on the conclusion section. Want me to send you my edits?" I looked up at him, really seeing him for the first time. The friendly smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The calculated casualness. The way he positioned himself between me and advancement. "No thanks," I said evenly. "The report is final." But as I would soon learn in Adam's world, nothing was ever final until he'd put his mark on it. And what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was just how far he would go to erase my name and write his own. By the 3rd month of the promotion cycle, I was exhausted. The excitement of possibility had given way to a constant, gnawing vigilance. I found myself checking and rechecking shared folders, making backup copies of my work, and sending emails with timestamps that could prove ownership. Living in constant defense mode was draining me. At home, Riley noticed. "You look tired, Mommy," she said one evening as I scrolled through work emails at the kitchen table. Our modest two-bedroom apartment in southeast Denver was filled with the aroma of the pasta dinner I'd managed to throw together. "Is it because of the big job?" I set my phone down and really looked at my daughter. Her math homework was spread out before her, pencil marks and erasures showing her careful work. Riley had my determination, but thankfully none of my anxieties. Not yet, anyway. "A little bit," I admitted, reaching over to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Sometimes grown-up jobs get complicated." "Is someone being mean to you?" she asked with the directness only children possess. The question caught me off guard. Was Adam being mean, or was he just being strategic? In the corporate world, the line between competition and cruelty often blurred. "Not exactly," I said. "But sometimes people want the same things, and not everyone plays fair." Riley nodded solemnly, like when Zoe took credit for my science project idea. I felt a pang of recognition. "Exactly like that. What did you do about Zoe?" "I told Ms. Winters the truth," Riley said simply. "And then I found a new partner. If only adult problems had such straightforward solutions." That Friday, I stayed late finalizing the presentation for the Q3 board review. It was the most critical pitch of the year, the one Henry had said would seal the promotion. The office was nearly empty, the city lights visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows creating the illusion that I was working among the stars. I saved the deck on the shared drive at 11:23 p.m., making sure my name was prominently displayed on the cover slide as the primary author, with appropriate credit to team members who had contributed specific sections. I triple-checked the permissions, locked the master file, and finally headed home, bone-tired, but satisfied. When I opened the file Monday morning, the formatting was different. Slides were changed. My name had been deleted from the cover slide. Adam's name stood alone. My stomach lurched. I scrolled through the document, finding subtle changes throughout. A reworded conclusion here, a rearranged chart there. Nothing dramatic enough to change the substance, but enough to justify a new authorship. I confronted him at the coffee station, keeping my voice low, professional. "Adam, I noticed some changes to the Q3 deck, the one I finalized Friday night." He looked surprised. Perfectly, practice surprised. "Oh, yeah. I came in over the weekend to polish a few things. Caught some minor errors in the data visualization." "And my name?" He smiled. "Oh, wow, I didn't even notice. Must have been a versioning issue. I'll fix it right away." But he didn't. And worse, when the presentation was distributed to the executive team later that morning, it went out with Adam as the primary author and me listed as contributing analyst. Henry noticed. He pulled me aside after the meeting. His brow furrowed. "Monica, is everything okay? You seemed off during the presentation." I struggled to find the right words. How could I explain what was happening without sounding paranoid or, worse, incompetent? "I'm fine," I said automatically. "Just tired. Long weekend." Henry wasn't buying it. The presentation was good, but not up to your usual standards, and Adam seemed very prepared to answer questions about methodology. His implication hung in the air between us. "Monica," he said more gently, "I need to ask, are you losing confidence in your work? Adam seems to be stepping in a lot lately." That moment broke something in me. All my hours, all my integrity, my loyalty to this company, and now I was being doubted, because someone was stealing my shadow. "Henry," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need to show you something." I pulled up the document history on the shared drive, displaying the timestamp of my final edits Friday night, followed by Adam's weekend modifications, including the removal of my name. Henry's expression darkened. "This is concerning." "It's not the first time," I admitted, "but it's the most blatant." He nodded slowly. "Document this. All of it. And in the meantime, I'll make sure Helena knows who really drove this analysis." I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly extinguished when I saw Adam and Helena walking together toward the executive wing later that afternoon, deep in conversation, Adam's hand gesturing animatedly as Helena nodded with interest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my bedroom, listening to the soft sounds of Riley breathing in the room next door, and wondered if I was fighting a losing battle. Maybe Adam was simply better at the political game than I was. Maybe, in the corporate world, that mattered more than the actual work. I almost gave up. But then I thought of Riley and her simple approach to Zoe's betrayal. Tell the truth, then find a new partner. The first part I could do. The second would mean leaving Meridian, starting over somewhere else after 8 years of building my career. I wasn't ready to surrender either my work or my workplace. Not yet. What I didn't know then was that the real betrayal hadn't even begun. A week before the final director meeting, I stayed late again, this time to double-check a financial report that Adam had helped me clean up. The office was quiet, the cleaning staff moving silently through the rows of desks, emptying trash cans and wiping down surfaces. I was reviewing the spreadsheet line by line when I noticed something odd, a hidden tab. I'd been working with Excel for my entire career. I knew when something didn't belong. The tab was buried in the file, password protected, labeled Model 3B Meridian. It wasn't mine. I frowned, trying to remember where I'd heard that name before. Model 3B. And then it clicked. It was the original working name of a failed project from the previous year, a market expansion initiative that had been shelved after preliminary research showed it wasn't viable. Why would Adam hide a tab related to a dead project in my current financial report? I tried a few obvious passwords before giving up. Whatever was in that tab, Adam didn't want anyone else to see it. But the fact that it was there at all, hidden in my work, made my skin crawl. I forwarded the file to Henry with a brief note. Found this hidden tab in the Q4 financials. Not sure what it is, but thought you should know. 2 days later, he called me into his office, alone. Henry looked pale, tired, angry. The usual warm confidence in his eyes had been replaced by something harder, more resolute. Close the door, he said. I did, then sat in the chair across from him, heart pounding. I think you should see this, he said. He handed me a printed chain of emails. I scanned the first page, then the second, my fingers growing cold as I turned to the third. Adam had been forwarding my work, slide decks, reports, even private strategy notes, to his personal Gmail. He'd been sending them under the subject line, Review for Final. But these weren't being sent for review. They were being archived, systematically, meticulously, creating a parallel record of my work under his control. Worse, he had told Helena Price that he was mentoring me, that all my improvements in the last quarter were his coaching in action. The final email in the chain was the most damning. Adam to Helena, dated just 3 weeks ago. As we discussed, I've been guiding Monica through the Eastern expansion analysis. She has solid technical skills but struggles with the strategic vision. With continued mentorship, she could be a strong contributor, but I don't believe she's ready for senior leadership. I'm attaching the latest version of the report with my annotations. You'll see the significant improvements from her original draft. Attached was my report, the one I'd stayed until midnight perfecting, with Adam's name at the top. It was a masterclass in subtle sabotage. How did you find this? I asked, my voice barely audible. That hidden tab you found? It was password protected, but the IT security team can override that for compliance reviews. Inside was a backup of his personal email, probably saved there accidentally. Henry's jaw tightened. I discovered it during a last-minute integrity review, something Helena had requested for transparency ahead of the promotion vote. The irony might have made me laugh if I wasn't so close to tears. Adam's own paranoia, his need to keep evidence of his work, including his deception, had exposed him. Does Helena know? I asked. Not yet, Henry said. I wanted to talk to you first. This puts us in a difficult position. The promotion announcement is scheduled for Friday's director meeting. 3 days away. After 8 years of work, after months of Adam's systematic undermining, it all came down to 3 days. What are you going to do? I asked. Henry studied me for a long moment. The question is, what are we going to do? This isn't just about the promotion anymore, Monica. This is about integrity, about truth. I nodded slowly, feeling something shift inside me, a resolution forming. Don't say a word to Helena, I said quietly. Let me bring it into the room myself. Henry's eyebrows rose. You want to confront this? Directly? In the director meeting? Not confront, I corrected. Present. The facts, the evidence, calmly and professionally. I met his gaze steadily. I've earned that much, haven't I? After a moment, he nodded. Yes, you have. We spent the next hour planning. Henry would compile all the evidence, the email chain, the document histories showing my original work, and Adam's subsequent changes. The performance records showing my consistent excellence long before Adam's supposed mentorship began. I would prepare to present it all, not with anger or accusation, but with the same methodical precision I brought to every analysis I'd ever conducted for Meridian Global. As I left Henry's office, he called after me. Monica, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have seen this sooner. I paused at the door. We both should have. I walked back to my desk through the busy office, past colleagues who had no idea of the storm brewing. Adam's desk was empty. He was in a client meeting off-site. I sat down, opened my laptop, and began to prepare for the most important presentation of my career. One that would either secure my future at Meridian Global or end it completely. The next morning, I woke before my alarm, my mind already racing through what lay ahead. The pale dawn light filtered through my bedroom curtains as I sat on the edge of my bed, breathing deeply, centering myself. Riley appeared in my doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Mommy, are you okay?" I smiled at her, this perceptive child who somehow always knew when something was wrong. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about a big meeting tomorrow." She climbed onto the bed beside me, her small, warm body leaning against mine. "Is it about the big job?" "Yes," I said, putting my arm around her. "It's about the big job. Are you going to tell on the mean person?" she asked, looking up at me with those earnest eyes. I hesitated. How much had I revealed in my distraction? "What mean person, Riley?" "The one who doesn't play fair," she said simply. "You said someone at work doesn't play fair, like Zoe. Children have a way of reducing complex situations to their essence. Adam didn't play fair. That was the simple truth behind all the corporate maneuvering and manipulation." "Yes," I said finally. "I'm going to tell the truth about what happened." Riley nodded solemnly. "Ms. Winters says the truth always wins." I wished I shared her certainty. In my experience, the truth often got buried under politics, perception, and power. But I couldn't tell my daughter that. "That's right," I said instead. "And that's why it's important to always be honest, even when it's hard." We went through our morning routine, breakfast, lunch packing, hair brushing, and I dropped Riley at school with an extra tight hug. As I watched her skip toward the building, backpack bouncing, I felt a surge of resolve. This wasn't just about my career anymore. It was about the example I was setting for my daughter. At the office, I moved through the day with mechanical precision, finalizing preparations for tomorrow's meeting while maintaining a facade of normalcy. Adam was back from his client meeting, charming, and confident as ever, stopping by my desk mid-morning. "Ready for tomorrow?" he asked, leaning against my cubicle wall. "Helena mentioned she's impressed with how the team has been functioning lately." The audacity was breathtaking. I looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of guilt or awareness. There was none, just that practiced smile, those calculating eyes. "I'm ready," I said, my voice neutral. "Very ready." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face at my tone, but it vanished quickly. "Great. Should be a good outcome for everyone." As he walked away, I wondered what he really believed. Did he think his manipulation would never be discovered? Or did he simply not care, confident that perception mattered more than reality? At lunch, I met Henry in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. We sat in a corner booth, away from the windows, reviewing the final details. "Everything's prepared," he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "All the evidence is here, organized chronologically. I've also included a summary document that highlights the pattern." I pocketed the drive. "Thank you, Henry, for believing me, for helping me." He shook his head. "Don't thank me. I should have caught this earlier. The signs were there. We both missed them," I said. "Adam is skilled at what he does." Henry's expression hardened. "Too skilled. This isn't his first time, Monica. After finding those emails, I started looking deeper. There's a pattern going back at least 2 years. Small projects at first, then bigger ones. Always with women, always with people who work hard but don't self-promote aggressively." I felt a chill. "Others like me. Yes, but none who stayed long enough or gathered enough evidence to expose him." Henry leaned forward. "Which is why tomorrow matters so much. Not just for you, but for everyone he's done this to. Everyone he might do it to in the future." The weight of responsibility settled heavily on my shoulders. This wasn't just about clearing my name or securing a promotion. It was about stopping a pattern of behavior that hurt not just individual careers, but the integrity of the entire organization. "What do you think Helena will do?" I asked. Henry sighed. Hard to say. She values results, but she also values integrity, and she hates being manipulated. If we present this right, professionally, without emotion, I think she'll respond accordingly. I nodded, taking a sip of my now cold coffee. And if she doesn't? He met my gaze steadily. Then we'll know exactly what kind of company Meridian really is. Back at the office, I spent the afternoon finalizing my regular work, determined not to let tomorrow's confrontation affect my performance. At 5:30, I packed up to leave, needing time with Riley to ground me before the storm. As I was walking out, I passed the conference room where tomorrow's meeting would be held. Through the glass, I could see Adam inside, seemingly rehearsing a presentation, his gestures animated, his expression confident. I paused, watching him for a moment. In another life, we might have been friends. Real friends, not the superficial workplace alliance I'd mistaken for. Friendship. He was talented, charismatic, driven. If he'd channeled those qualities into honest work instead of manipulation, he could have achieved genuine success. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for him. What kind of emptiness drove someone to build their career by tearing down others? Then I remembered the emails, the stolen credit, the systematic undermining of my work and reputation. The pity evaporated, replaced by a cool determination. Tomorrow, the truth would speak for itself. That evening, I helped Riley with her science project, a model of the solar system made from painted styrofoam balls and wire. As we worked at the kitchen table, carefully positioning Neptune and Uranus, she asked, "Are you nervous about tomorrow, Mommy?" I paused, a half-painted Neptune in my hand. A little, I admitted. How can you tell? You keep looking at your phone, but you're not really looking at it, she said with the insight that often surprised me. And you're making your thinking face. I smiled. My thinking face? She scrunched up her forehead and pursed her lips in what I assumed was an imitation of my concentrated expression. I couldn't help but laugh. I guess I am nervous, I said. Tomorrow is important. Riley nodded wisely. But you'll do great because you always tell the truth, and the truth always wins. She held up her completed model. Just like the sun is always at the center, no matter what. As I tucked her into bed later that night, I wondered if life was really that simple. If truth really was like the sun, inevitable and illuminating. I hoped so. Because tomorrow, I was counting on it. The morning of the director meeting dawned clear and bright, Denver's skyline sharp against a cloudless blue sky. I dressed with particular care, a navy suit that conveyed professionalism without aggression, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back neatly, armor for the battle ahead. Riley watched me from the doorway of my bedroom. "You look like a boss, Mommy." I smiled at her reflection in the mirror. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's the idea. Will you know today about the big job?" I turned to face her. "Yes, one way or another, I'll know today." She hugged me fiercely before I left, her small arms tight around my waist. "Remember truth like the sun," she whispered. "Truth like the sun," I repeated, holding the phrase like a talisman. The drive to Meridian, Global's downtown headquarters, was a blur of traffic and anticipation. In the elevator, I checked my phone one last time. A message from Henry. "Conference room B, 10 a.m. I've got everything ready." I texted back a simple, "Thank you," and slipped the phone into my bag. The office was already buzzing with activity when I arrived. I made my way to my desk, nodding greetings to colleagues, my external, calm betraying none of the turmoil within. I had an hour before the meeting, time to review my notes one final time, to ensure I was prepared not just with evidence, but with the right approach. At 9:50, I gathered my materials, the USB drive, my tablet, a small notepad, and headed toward conference room B. The hallway seemed longer than usual, each step carrying me closer to a moment that would define my future at Meridian Global. And then my phone buzzed. "Henry. Call me. Urgent." I ducked into a side hallway and dialed his number immediately. "Monica." His voice was low, tense. "Before you walk into that room, you need to know something. The promotion decision isn't what you think. And Adam, he's not who you think either." My heart pounded. "What are you talking about? What's happened?" "Adam's been in Helena's office for the past hour. I don't know what he said, but she just called me in briefly. She asked for the integrity review files, specifically anything related to you." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He's trying to get ahead of this, to discredit me before I can present the evidence." "I think so. But Monica, there's something else. Henry paused, his voice dropping even lower. When I was leaving her office, I overheard part of their conversation. Adam mentioned stability concerns and emotional reactions to feedback. He's painting you as unstable. The cruel calculation of it stole my breath. Because I'm a single mother, I whispered. He's using Riley against me. I don't know that for certain, Henry said quickly, but I wanted you to be prepared. This may be uglier than we anticipated. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes briefly. What do you suggest? Nothing changes, Henry said firmly. We stick to the plan. Facts, evidence, professionalism. Let the truth speak for itself. He paused. Are you sure you want to do this? For a moment, doubt crept in. I could walk away now, find another job, start fresh somewhere, without this history, this betrayal. But then I thought of Riley watching me get ready this morning, telling me I looked like a boss. I thought of her simple faith in truth. I'm sure, I said. See you in there. I ended the call and straightened my shoulders. The hallway was empty now, the muted sounds of the office distant. Through the glass walls of conference room B, I could see them waiting. Helena at the head of the table, her silver bob catching the light. Adam beside her, leaning in, speaking earnestly. Henry across from them, his posture rigid, professional. My future, contained in that glass box. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The conversation stopped abruptly. 3 faces turned toward me. Helena with her assessing gaze, Henry with barely concealed concern, and Adam, his smile faltering slightly when he saw the determined set of my jaw. Monica, Helena nodded. We were just discussing the upcoming leadership shift. I understand Adam has played a big role in preparing you for this next level. The trap was already laid. If I reacted emotionally, I would confirm Adam's narrative about my instability. If I said nothing, I would tacitly accept his version of events. Adam's smile widened. It's been an honor watching Monica grow. The manila folder felt heavy in my hands. For a brief moment, I thought about simply turning around and walking away, starting over somewhere else, somewhere without shadows and whispers and betrayal. But then I thought of Riley, of what I would tell her tonight. I placed the folder on the polished table and met Helena's eyes, directly. Before we continue, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, there's something you need to see. I opened the folder, took out the printed emails, and laid them in the center of the table. These are emails from Adam's account, forwarding my work to his personal Gmail. You'll notice the dates, the timestamps, and the consistent pattern. Helena's eyebrows rose slightly as she glanced at the documents. Adam's face had gone very still. Next, I continued, removing a flash drive from my bag, I have the document histories for several key projects over the past 6 months. They show my original work and the subsequent changes made by Adam, including the removal of my name from author fields. I connected the drive to the room's display system, bringing up the first file, the Q3 board review presentation with its clear history of edits. I'm not sure what Adam began, but Helena held up a hand, silencing him as she studied the screen. The room had gone absolutely quiet. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the distant ping of an elevator. There's more, I said, keeping my voice even, professional. This final document is a summary of the, pattern, including testimonials from 2 former team members who experienced similar situations with Adam, but left the company before addressing them formally. Adam's face had lost all color. Helena's expression was unreadable as she reviewed the evidence before her. When I finished presenting, the silence stretched long and heavy. Then, Helena spoke. I think we need to take a break before making any final announcements. She stood, gathering the documents. Adam, I'd like to see you in my office. Henry, please stay here with Monica. As they left, Adam avoided my gaze entirely. When the door closed behind them, Henry let out a long breath. You did it, he said quietly. Perfectly. I nodded, still too tense to feel relief. What happens now? Henry glanced toward Helena's office, where we could see her gesturing emphatically, while Adam sat rigid in his chair. Now, Henry said, we wait for the truth to finish its work. Henry and I sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Through the glass walls of Helena's office, we could see her speaking, her hands occasionally gesturing sharply, while Adam sat unnaturally still, his shoulders progressively slumping as the conversation continued. What do you think is happening? I asked quietly. Henry glanced toward the office. Helena doesn't tolerate deception. She values results, yes, but not at the expense of integrity. My guess is she's giving him an opportunity to explain himself. Do you think there's any explanation that could justify what he did? Henry shook his head slowly. No, and I don't think Helena will see one either. We fell silent again. I checked my phone, a text from Mrs. Lawson, Riley's after-school caregiver, confirming pickup. The mundane reminder of life outside this glass box was almost jarring. While my professional future hung in the balance, the school day would end. Riley would need dinner. Homework would need reviewing. Finally, Helena's door opened. Adam emerged first, his face ashen, his usual confident posture diminished. He walked quickly past the conference room without looking in, heading straight for the elevator bank. Helena appeared in the doorway of her office. Henry, Monica, could you join me, please? We followed her back into her office, taking seats across from her large desk. The view of downtown Denver spread out behind. The mountains visible in the distance. But Helena's expression was as inscrutable as the urban landscape. I want to thank you both for bringing this situation to light, she began, her voice measured. Integrity is one of our core values at Meridian Global, and what I've seen today represents a serious breach of that value. She folded her hands on the desk. Adam has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation by HR and legal. I've asked him not to return to the office or contact any team members until that process is complete. I felt a surge of relief, quickly tempered by uncertainty. Adam was gone, for now. But what did that mean for the promotion, for my future? As if reading my thoughts, Helena continued. As for the senior strategy manager position, I believe we need to pause the selection process temporarily. Given what's come to light, I want to ensure that all candidates are evaluated fairly, based solely on their own merits and contributions. My heart sank. After everything, we were back to square one, or worse, in limbo. How long do you anticipate this pause will last? Henry asked, his voice carefully neutral. Helena considered this. The investigation should take approximately 2 weeks. Once it's complete, we'll resume the selection process immediately. She turned her gaze directly to me. Monica, I want you to know that I deeply regret not recognizing what was happening. Your work speaks for itself, and it should have been attributed properly. Thank you, I said, the words feeling inadequate. In the meantime, Helena continued, I'd like both of you to maintain discretion about what's occurred. The official message to the team will be that Adam is on personal leave and that the leadership announcement has been delayed due to some organizational restructuring considerations. We nodded our agreement. Office gossip would inevitably generate theories, but maintaining professionalism was important, not just for Meridian Global, but for my own reputation. As we stood to leave, Helena added, Monica, would you be able to step into some of Adam's client-facing responsibilities while he's away? You're most familiar with the current projects. The request was both a vote of confidence and a test. Of course, I said. I'll review his calendar and current commitments today. Helena nodded approvingly. Thank you. And Monica, take today to regroup. Start fresh tomorrow. Back at my desk, I felt strangely numb. The confrontation I'd been dreading was over, but the resolution remained uncertain. I gathered my things, deciding to take Helena's advice and leave early. I needed time to process everything that had happened, and to be with Riley. As I walked toward the elevator, I passed Adam's desk. It looked exactly as it always did, organized, pristine, with his company awards prominently displayed. How quickly things could change. This morning, he'd been poised for promotion. Now, his career at Meridian hung by a thread. For a moment, I felt a twinge of regret. Not for exposing the truth, that had been necessary and right, but for the fact that someone with Adam's talents had chosen such a destructive path. What might he have accomplished if he'd channeled that ambition into honest work, instead of undermining others? The thought evaporated as the elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. Adam had made his choices. Now I needed to focus on mine. I picked up Riley early from after-school care, surprising her with an impromptu trip to the park. As she ran toward the playground, backpack bouncing, I felt some of the tension of the day begin to dissolve. Did you tell the truth, Mommy? She asked later as we sat on a bench, sharing a pretzel from a nearby vendor. I did, I said. Just like you told me to. And did the truth win? I hesitated, trying to find the right words to explain the complicated reality to a 10-year-old. It's starting to, I said finally. The truth doesn't always win right away, Riley. Sometimes it takes time. She considered this, her face serious, like when you plant a seed. It doesn't become a flower right away. I smiled at her metaphor. Exactly like that. The truth is planted now. We have to wait for it to grow. That evening, after Riley was in bed, I sat on my small balcony overlooking the city lights, a glass of wine in hand. The events of the day played through my mind on repeat. The confrontation, the evidence, Adam's face as he left Helena's office. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. You were magnificent today. Whatever happens next, remember that. I smiled, grateful for his support. Without Henry noticing the pattern, believing me, helping me gather evidence, today might have gone very differently. I typed back, thank you for everything. Then I sat back, gazing at the night sky. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The shadow of Adam's manipulation had been lifted. Whatever happened with the promotion, I had reclaimed my work, my reputation, my voice. The truth was planted. Now we would see what grew from it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. With Adam on leave, I found myself juggling not only my own responsibilities but many of his as well. Helena had been right to ask me to step in. The seamless transition demonstrated clearly that I was capable of handling senior-level work. The official announcement to the team had been brief and vague, as Helena had indicated it would be. Adam was on personal leave, and the leadership announcement was delayed pending. Organizational considerations. Whispers circulated, of course. Speculation ranged from Adam having a mental health crisis to him being poached by a competitor. I maintained the discretion Helena had requested, focusing instead on the work. Each morning, I reviewed Adam's client commitments, prioritized immediate needs, and delegated what I couldn't handle personally. Each evening, I made sure to be home in time for dinner with Riley, compartmentalizing the professional challenges so they wouldn't spill over into our precious time together. You seem happier, Riley observed one night as we washed dishes together, her on a step stool beside me at the sink. Not so worried all the time. I smiled, passing her a plate to dry. I am happier. Things at work are clearer now. Did the truth flower grow? She asked, carefully wiping the plate with her dish towel. I laughed softly at her persistent metaphor. It's starting to bud, I think. On the Friday marking the end of the second week, I received an email from Helena. Please stop by my office at 4 p.m. today. My heart skipped. The investigation must be complete. This meeting would determine what came next. For Adam, for the promotion, for my future at Meridian Global. I spent the day focused on work, refusing to let anxiety distract me. At 3:55, I closed my laptop, smoothed my hair, and walked calmly to Helena's office. She greeted me with a warmth I hadn't seen before, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Thank you for coming, Monica, and thank you for handling the transition so seamlessly these past 2 weeks. The clients haven't felt any disruption, which is remarkable given the circumstances. I'm glad to hear that, I said. The team has been very supportive. Helena nodded, then got straight to the point. The investigation is complete. I wanted you to be the first to know the outcomes before I make any official announcements. I steeled myself, waiting. Adam will not be returning to Meridian Global, she said, her tone matter-of-fact. The investigation confirmed a pattern of behavior that violated multiple company policies, including our code of ethics and our intellectual property guidelines. I exhaled slowly, feeling a complex mix of emotions, relief, vindication, and a lingering sadness for what could have been if Adam had chosen a different path. I want to apologize to you personally, Helena continued. As a leader, I should have recognized what was happening. Adam's tactics were subtle but systematic, and they should not have gone undetected for so long. Thank you, I said, genuinely moved by her candor. But it was difficult for anyone to see. Adam was skilled at what he did. Helena's expression hardened slightly. Too skilled. The investigation revealed that you weren't the first person he'd done this to. There were at least 3 others over the past 4 years, all of whom eventually left the company. The number shocked me, even though Henry had suggested there might be others. I had no idea. Neither did most people. That's how he operated, undermining people quietly, making them doubt themselves until they either left or accepted. Diminished roles. Helena shook her head. It's a significant failure of our systems that this wasn't caught earlier. She picked up a folder from her desk. Which brings me to the second matter. The senior strategy manager position. My pulse quickened. The investigation delayed our timeline, but it also clarified the decision considerably. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her. Monica, I'd like to formally offer you the position, effective immediately. The words took a moment to register. After everything, the months of Adam's manipulation, the confrontation, the uncertainty of the past 2 weeks, it was finally happening. Thank you, I managed, professional composure momentarily abandoning me. I'm honored. You've earned it, Helena said firmly. Your work speaks for itself, now that we can properly attribute it to you. And the way you've handled Adam's responsibilities these past 2 weeks has only confirmed what your performance history already showed. You're ready for this role. She handed me the folder. This contains the formal offer letter, compensation details, and a transition plan. Take the weekend to review it, and we can discuss any questions on Monday. I accepted the folder, still processing the news. Thank you for your confidence in me. It's well placed, Helena assured me. And Monica, the way you handled this situation, bringing forward evidence professionally, without personal attacks or drama, that demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership Meridian needs. As I left Helena's office, folder in hand, I felt strangely light, as if a weight I'd been carrying for months had finally been lifted. I walked past Adam's empty desk, now cleared of personal items, and felt no triumph, no vindication, just relief that the truth had finally emerged. I texted Henry on my way to the elevator. It's official. I got the position. His reply came immediately. Never doubted it for a second. Congratulations, Monica. Well deserved. As I drove to pick up Riley, I considered how to tell her the news. She had been part of this journey from the beginning, in her own way. My conscience, my cheerleader, my reason for persevering when giving up would have been easier. I found her on the playground, hanging upside down from the monkey bars, her dark hair cascading toward the ground. Mommy, she called, spotting me. Watch me flip. I watched. Her execute a wobbly but successful dismount, clapping as she ran toward me. I have some news, I told her as we walked hand in hand to the car. Remember the big job I was hoping for? She looked up at me, eyes wide. Did you get it? I nodded, unable to contain my smile. I did. It's official. Riley let out a whoop and threw her arms around my waist. I knew it. I knew the truth flower would grow, I laughed, lifting her into a hug. You were right all along. The truth did win. Can we celebrate? She asked eagerly. With ice cream? Absolutely, I agreed. This definitely calls for ice cream. As we drove toward her favorite ice cream shop, Riley chattering excitedly about what flavor she would choose, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the promotion, but for the lessons this journey had taught me, about resilience, integrity, and the power of truth. The seed had been planted, the flower had bloomed, and now it was time to enjoy the fruits of honest labor. 3 months into my role as senior strategy manager, the rhythm of my new position had begun to feel natural. My corner office on the executive floor, a physical manifestation of my new status, offered panoramic views of downtown Denver and the distant mountains. Each morning as I unlocked my door, I felt a quiet satisfaction, not from the prestige of the title, but from knowing I'd earned it honestly. The transition had been smoother than I expected. The team that now reported to me, 6 analysts and 2 junior managers, had adapted quickly to my leadership style. Most had worked with me before my promotion and knew my approach. Meticulous, collaborative, and transparent. The qualities Adam had tried to frame as weaknesses had become my greatest strengths. On this particular Tuesday morning, I was reviewing the quarterly forecast when my assistant, Layla, knocked on my open door. Helena would like to see you, she said. She mentioned it's about the executive committee presentation. Tomorrow. I nodded, gathering my tablet and notes. The executive committee meeting was my first major presentation since the promotion, a comprehensive market strategy for the coming year. I'd spent weeks preparing, determined to demonstrate that Helena's faith in me was justified. Helena's office was larger than mine, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the mountains seem close enough to touch. She greeted me with a smile, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I wanted to check in before tomorrow's presentation, she said. How are you feeling about it? Prepared, I replied honestly. The team has done excellent work on the market analysis, and I've reviewed every slide personally. Helena nodded approvingly. I've looked over the advance copy you sent. It's thorough, insightful, and exactly what the committee needs to see. She paused, studying me. But that's not the only reason I wanted to talk to you. I waited, curious. I received a call yesterday from Westridge Partners, she said, naming one of our largest competitors. Their HR director reached out as a professional courtesy. Adam Green applied for a position with them. My stomach tightened at the mention of his name. In the months since his departure, I'd thought of Adam less and less, focusing instead on rebuilding what he'd tried to dismantle. I see, I said carefully. And they wanted a reference? Helena smiled grimly. Something like that. They've been doing their due diligence. It seems Adam has been selective in explaining his departure from Meridian. What did you tell them? I asked, genuinely curious about how Helena had handled it. The truth, she said simply. Not out of vindictiveness, but because it's the right thing to do. I confirmed that he left following an investigation into professional misconduct, including misrepresentation of work and breaches of our ethics policy. I nodded slowly, processing this. Thank you for telling me. You deserve to know, Helena said. But there's something else. The HR director mentioned they'd received similar warnings from 2 other companies where Adam had worked previously. It seems Meridian wasn't his first, or his second. The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. The pattern stretched back further than we'd known, a long trail of manipulation and deceit. What will happen to him now? I asked, not out of concern for Adam, but wondering about the consequences of his actions. Helena shrugged slightly. That's not our concern anymore, but I suspect he'll find it increasingly difficult to maintain his approach as his reputation follows him. She leaned forward. The reason I'm telling you this, Monica, is because I want you to know that integrity matters in this industry. Not just ethically, but practically. The truth does eventually surface. Riley's metaphor of the truth flower flashed in my mind. My daughter would agree with you, I said with a small smile. She has a very simple view of justice. Children often do, Helena observed. They see things clearly, without the complications we adults tend to add. She straightened some papers on her desk. Speaking of which, how is she adjusting to your new schedule? The question touched me. It was personal, genuine. A recognition that my professional life was only one dimension of who I was. She's proud, I said, warmth filling me at the thought of Riley, and surprisingly understanding when I have late meetings. I've been trying to balance things better, working from home when I can, being fully present when I'm with her. Helena nodded approvingly. That balance is crucial. Something I wish I'd learned earlier in my career. She glanced at a framed photo on her desk, her with 2 teenage boys, all smiling on what looked like a ski slope. Success means different things at different stages of life. The conversation shifted back to tomorrow's presentation, but I left Helena's office with more than just professional guidance. The news about Adam had provided an unexpected sense of closure. He was no longer a shadow in my professional life, but a lesson, a reminder of the importance of integrity and the power of truth. That evening, I picked Riley up from her after-school program earlier than usual. The autumn afternoon was unseasonably warm, golden light bathing the city. Can we go to the park? She asked, bouncing into the passenger seat. Actually, I said, I thought we might do something special today. How about the Botanic Gardens? Riley's eyes widened. Really? On a school night? I smiled, pulling away from the curb. Really, I think we deserve a little adventure. The Denver Botanic Gardens were ablaze with fall colors. Russets, golds, deep crimsons. Riley and I wandered the paths, her small hand in mine, stopping to admire particularly beautiful plants or interesting structures. In the Japanese garden, we paused by a small pool where koi fish glided beneath lily pads. Riley crouched down, fascinated by their slow, deliberate movements. Mommy, she said suddenly, remember the truth flower we talked about? I do, I said, joining her at the edge of the pool. Why? She pointed to a lotus blossom, pink and perfect, rising from the murky water. I think it looks like that. Beautiful, even though it grows in the mud. The insight stopped me short. This wisdom from my 10-year-old daughter. That's exactly right, Riley. The truth can grow in difficult places, but it still reaches the light. She nodded solemnly, then brightened. Can we get hot chocolate on the sea? Way home? I laughed at the quick transition. Absolutely. As we walked hand in hand through the gardens, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the paths, I felt a deep contentment. The past year had been challenging in ways I never could have anticipated, but here, in this moment with my daughter, I knew with certainty that we had emerged stronger. The truth had indeed bloomed, not just in my professional vindication, but in the lessons Riley and I had learned together about resilience, integrity, and the quiet power of standing firm in what's right. 1 year to the day after my promotion, I stood before the mirror in my bedroom, adjusting the collar of my navy blue dress. The outfit was new, purchased specifically for today's board meeting, where I would be presenting the annual strategy review and, more significantly, being introduced as Meridian Global's newest vice president of strategic development. The promotion had come as a surprise, offered by Helena just 2 weeks ago after the unexpected departure of Thomas Grenier to a firm in Chicago. "You're ready," she'd said simply. "You've proven that repeatedly over the past year." In the kitchen, Riley was finishing her breakfast, dressed for school in her uniform, a pleated skirt and white blouse. At 11, she was on the cusp of adolescence, her face losing its childish roundness, her questions becoming more complex. "Are you nervous about today?" she asked, pushing her empty cereal bowl aside. I smiled, pouring myself a second cup of coffee. "A little. It's a big meeting." "But you're prepared," she said confidently. "You always are." "I am," I agreed, touched by her faith in me. "How about you? Ready for your science presentation?" She nodded, packing her lunch into her backpack. "Ms. Winters says I might win the science fair if I keep improving my project." "I wouldn't be surprised," I told her, genuinely proud of her dedication to her solar system model, which had evolved significantly over the past year. "You've worked really hard." As we drove to her school, Riley chattering about her day ahead, I reflected on how much had changed in a year. My career had advanced more rapidly than I could have imagined, but the most significant growth had been internal, a deepened confidence, a clearer sense of my own worth, a refusal to diminish myself to make others comfortable. After dropping Riley off, I drove downtown, the Denver skyline glittering in the morning sunlight. Meridian Global's headquarters no longer felt intimidating but familiar, a place where I had earned my position through honest work and resilience. In the executive parking garage, I spotted a familiar figure heading toward the elevator. Henry, now my peer rather than my supervisor after his own promotion to EU. Vice President of Client Relations 6 months earlier. "Ready for the big day?" he asked as we rode up together. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, though I still wish you'd be there. Henry was leaving for London immediately after our morning meeting, part of an expansion strategy I'd helped develop. "You'll be brilliant," he assured me. "The board already respects you. This is just formality." We parted at the executive floor, Henry heading to his office to collect his travel documents, me to mine to review my presentation one final time before the 10 a.m. meeting. My office had changed little in the past year. I'd added personal touches, including a framed photograph of Riley and me at the Botanic Gardens, and, at her insistence, a small potted lotus plant on my windowsill. "To remind you," she'd said when she gave it to me, "about truth flowers." At 9:50, I gathered my materials and headed toward the main boardroom. The hallway was busy with executives and board members arriving for the quarterly meeting, many nodding respectfully as I passed. Near the boardroom doors, I encountered a face I hadn't seen in a year, Lawrence Jankowski, the former senior strategy manager, whose retirement had set this entire journey in motion. He was visiting for the day, invited by Helena to observe the company's progress. "Monica," he greeted me warmly, "Helena's been telling me great things about your work. I knew you had potential, but you've exceeded everyone's expectations." "Thank you, Lawrence," I replied, genuinely touched by his words. "That means a lot coming from you." He smiled, lowering his voice slightly. "I also heard about what happened with Adam. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but not surprised by how you handled it. Integrity always rises to the top eventually." As we entered the boardroom together, I was struck by how different this felt from a year ago. Walking into Helena's office with that manila folder, heart pounding, future uncertain. Now, I moved with confidence, greeting board members by name, taking my place near the head of the table as a respected leader. Helena arrived last, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit, her silver bob gleaming under the recessed lighting. She called the meeting to order with her usual efficiency, moving quickly through preliminary matters before reaching the agenda item I'd been waiting for. We moved to the annual strategy review. "I'd like to formally introduce our newest addition to the executive team," she said, nodding in my direction. Many of you already know Monica Taylor, who has served as our senior strategy manager for the past year. Effective immediately, Monica will be stepping into the role of Vice President of Strategic Development. Polite applause filled the room. I smiled, acknowledging the recognition with a brief nod. Monica's journey with Meridian Global exemplifies the values we strive to uphold, Helena continued. Excellence, integrity, and unwavering commitment to our collective success. I have every confidence that she will continue to elevate our strategic vision in this new role. As the applause faded, Helena gestured for me to begin my presentation. I stood, moving to the front of the room with the composure that had become my trademark. For the next 45 minutes, I guided the board through my vision for Meridian Global's future. Market opportunities, potential challenges, innovative approaches to staying competitive in an evolving landscape. The questions that followed were engaged, thoughtful, showing genuine interest in the strategy I'd outlined. When the meeting concluded, board members stopped to congratulate me personally, many expressing enthusiasm for the direction I'd proposed. Helena caught my eye across the room, giving me a subtle nod of approval that meant more than any verbal praise. As the boardroom emptied, I gathered my materials, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over me. This moment, this achievement, wasn't about titles or status. It was about standing in my truth, about work recognized and valued on its own merits. I thought of Adam briefly, wondering where he was now, whether he'd found a way to build success honestly or was still constructing it through manipulation. The thought brought no anger, no bitterness, just a distant sadness for what might have been if he'd chosen a different path. That evening, I took Riley to her favorite restaurant to celebrate, a small Italian place near our apartment where the owner knew us by name. To the new vice president, Riley said solemnly, raising her glass of lemonade in a toast. I clinked my water glass against hers. And to the future scientist. As we ate, Riley told me about her day, the science presentation that had gone. Well, the math test she'd aced, the friend who'd invited her for a weekend sleepover. I listened attentively, present in this moment with my daughter, knowing that this, her happiness, our connection, was the true measure of success. Later, as we walked home under a sky scattered with stars, Riley slipped her hand into mine. I'm proud of you, Mommy, she said quietly. Thank you, sweetheart, I replied, squeezing her hand gently. That means everything to me. You know what Ms. Winters told us today? She continued. She said that your character is what you do when no one's watching, and your reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I smiled at the wisdom. That's very true. Riley looked up at me, her face earnest in the streetlight's glow. I think you have both, good character and a good reputation. As we reached our apartment building, I paused, kneeling to meet my daughter's eyes. Riley, I want you to remember something. No matter what happens in life, no matter who tries to make you doubt yourself, always stand in your truth. It might not win right away, but given time and light, it will always bloom. She nodded solemnly, then broke into a smile. Like the lotus flower. Exactly like the lotus flower, I agreed, standing and taking her hand again. We rode the elevator up to our apartment, the city lights twinkling below us through the glass walls. I thought about the journey of the past year, the betrayal, the struggle, the vindication, and finally, the growth that came from it all. The truth had indeed been like a lotus, growing, through murky waters, reaching for the light, and finally blooming into something beautiful and enduring. Not through vengeance or retaliation, but through patience, resilience, and unwavering integrity. As Riley had said so simply a year ago, the truth always wins, it just needs time to grow.